Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today, I have my friend, Mr. Nick Lamagna from the A Game Podcast. He's the A Game, right?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
He's not only the A Game Podcast host, but he's also a real estate investor. So, Nick, thank you for coming in today, brother. I appreciate you, man. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, where do you grow up? That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, man, for sure. So I appreciate you coming on, man. I really had a great time talking to you last week, so I'm excited to connect again. Born and raised in New York. I lived in Long Island for a long time, moved to New York City for a while. Now I'm spending most of my time in Chicago, but I thought I was going to be a police officer, firefighter, counterterrorism, DEA, CIA, some kind of fancy criminal justice thing. And then that was kind of my plan. And then I started doing construction while I was waiting to go into the academies. And I had an accident at work where there was faulty machinery and the safety failed. It came down, it crushed my hand. And what wound up happening was all the jobs I thought I had basically got taken away from me because of my hand injury. And so I had to find another way to try and rebuild my life and make money. And I accidentally fell into real estate. I started going to seminars and I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it really turned me on to the difference between assets and liabilities, and just started kind of surrounding myself with people that were doing different things, and started getting into real estate, started getting into boxing and jiu-jitsu, and that was kind of my path. Is when I was getting ready for the police stuff, I was also getting ready for the Golden Gloves, and so I had to figure out another way to also do stuff like that because lost the use of one of my hands. So I got into kickboxing, got into jiu-jitsu, got into MMA, and got into real estate all around the same time, and 10, 15 years later, I've had a bunch of fights. I got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I've done real estate all over the country, residential, land, commercial. We just did a land development deal. I've done a lot of wholesaling, good deals, bad deals, had great experiences, had terrible experiences, but learned a lot along the way. And a lot of it was earlier on before remote investing was really a thing. And we had Zoom and FaceTime and all these things. I was forced to really invest outside of my market because New York City, real tough with no credit, no experience, no background, and no credit. So I had to get a little scrappy and a little resourceful. And and then today I'm kind of just, still feel like I'm figuring it out every day, man,
How does a New Yorker end up in Chicago?
Yeah, it was a bad move. I went from cold to cold. I really should have gone to Florida or to Texas at the end of the day. But we had some projects here we were working on. My business partner was here, and I was just kind of bumping in and out part-time. And then during the pandemic, it became like my bat cave where it was a quiet place. It was like it's like a smaller, cleaner, quieter, more affordable New York City. And so it became kind of nice. I got used to it being a little bit more quiet, a little bit more private. And now when I go to New York City, the energy and like the horn honking and the craziness, it's a little bit too much for me now. So I need to take a little bit of a break. So it's a little bit of a step back, but I still love Long Island. I still bounce back and forth, but Chicago is definitely not going to be the permanent residence. I'm definitely going to be going to somewhere sunnier with some sunshine and hopefully some jiu-jitsu and some good food, sir.
Good for you, man. What do you like the most about Chicago?
People are very genuine here. I definitely like that. They're just nice. It's Midwest. They're cool. They're calm. So I like that a lot. But I don't really know it that well. I kind of sit in my bubble a little bit, which is funny because people see, you do a podcast and you travel and you put yourself out there. But I'm kind of like reserved and introverted and quiet when I'm not. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm saying. So I kind of stick in my bubble a little bit. But I got my core group over here. I wake up at 5:30, work out with my guys over there, do some jiu-jitsu, and my business partner and her family have kind of like adopted me. So I've made some really, I don't have it obviously as big a community here, but the community I have are like real tight knit, real good, close people. So, I definitely appreciated that. And the real estate market's a lot friendlier than it is in New York City for sure.
Yes, even though it's still not my favorite states, right? Illinois, they got their rules and regulations and things like that, and for landlords, it's a blue state, so I stay away as a landlord from blue states just because blue states got a thing against entrepreneurs and collecting rent on time. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure people have figured out how to be landlords in all those areas, and how to abide by the rules, and make sure they're collecting payments. But let's talk about your real estate journey. How do you actually find out about real estate? You said you were waiting to get in one of the academies. You had the accident. You had something that crushed your hands. Um, Man, that it wasn't meant for you, brother. Like, when something is not for you, the universe will do the unthinkable to keep you away from going into that route, right? So,
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're looking at real estate, and you're like, okay, um, I'm interested into this real estate thing. How do you get about it? Like, how do you? What was the first step for you to getting into real estate?
Yeah, I mean, so, my mom, I tell everybody, you listen to your mom. Your mom is always right, even when you don't want to. And she kept telling me, hey, read this book,
Hey,
read
hold
this
on a
book.
second. I watched a show yesterday on TV about crimes, and the guy went and robbed the bank because her mother told him he needed to go rob somebody to
Oh,
bring some money home. So be careful with that.
yeah. So don't always listen to your mom,
So
though.
the
I guess
guy
that's
is
like,
sitting in jail forever now. He's going. He went to jail for life. I forgot his name, but
yeah, yeah.
it
So
was a good show.
don't listen to that guy's mom. But if you got a nice Italian mom from Long Island, then maybe listen to her a little bit. But she kind of forced me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was as
Is your mother an entrepreneur?
No, not at all. So my dad owned a gas station, a body shop in New York, and right on the border of Long Island and Queens. And my mom worked for an insurance company for a little bit, but definitely not a family of entrepreneurs, really, by any means. And then so she just kept telling me, "Hey, read this book, read this book, read this book." And I read it one day, and it was just a catalyst for me understanding that there was a different way to think. And I remember reading like, "Hey, one of the best ways people become millionaires is through real estate, and you don't need a lot of money, and you don't have to have great credit." And I was like, well, I don't have any money. I don't have any credit. This sounds like one of the things I should start doing. So I started reading some books. I started going to seminars, and then I came across Robert Allen. Actually, was the first guy. I've heard you kind of talking about him too, but dude, it's pretty wild. I meant to tell you this when we were talking last time, but Robert Allen had written a book. I believe at that time was with Mark Victor Hansen. And I read The 1 Minute Millionaire, and then I think they came out with a book like Cracking the Code, if my timeline is correct. And he was coming to Queens. And so I went to Queens to go meet him, and I was like, "Hey man, like I had all the like and like on top of like my hand accident, it was like that movie Final Destination. There was like a horrible like 6, 12 months of just one bad thing after another kept happening. And I was like, man, like something's got to give here. So I wrote him kind of a story about here's what I've been going through. I'm not asking for anything for free, but what would you do if you were me? Like, what's some advice? And I remember I went there and I was like, hey, man, here's this letter I wrote you. If you read my letter, I'll buy your book. And he was like, you don't have to buy my book. I'll read your letter. And I was like, I appreciate that. I'm still going to buy your book. And dude, like, I don't know if it was 6, 12 months later, but one day I randomly got a call from my mom and she's like, you got this email from this lady that works with Robert Allen. And he said he read your letter and he's doing this real estate seminar thing in Chicago. Do you want to jump on a plane and go out there? They'll cover you. They'll pay for your flight. They'll pay for your hotel. You just got to cover your food and get your
Oh
butt
wow!
there. And that was like my first experience to
What
real
year
estate
is this?
seminars. Man, 2006, 2005,
Oh, this is a
2006,
long
right around
time
there.
ago.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's been a long journey. So, yeah, so that kind of got me into it, and that was my first thing. And then those guys started talking about investing out of state, and that was the first time I was like, oh wow, you can invest in Michigan, and you can invest in Vegas, and North Carolina, and Georgia, and houses aren't $800,000 for a 500 square foot one bed one bath home, and so that was kind of for me. And like, now I realize like a deal's a deal. The price point doesn't really matter relatively to what you're doing. But I just felt safer. I felt like I could make less of a mistake on $100,000 house, put 25, 30 in, sell it for 175, 200 than some of this stuff in New York City. So I started getting into buying houses in Michigan and buying houses in Vegas. And again, it was that time, man, where you could go to a seller and be like, hey, I want a no money down deal and I want $25,000 back at closing and I'm going to take out like a stated income loan. It was like that kind of heyday. So I started buying houses in Vegas at the time that I had no business buying, and they would give you money back at closing. And I threw that money in as down payments with hard money lenders on some other stuff to start to rehab and burr. And, some of the stuff worked out, some of it didn't, but it kind of got me like head first. Because part of the problem was when I hurt my hand, I felt like everything got taken away from me overnight. And then I had a scarcity mentality of like, I have to rebuild because what happens if, something terrible happens again? So I went a little bit too hard, too fast is definitely a lesson I learned. But, it's kind of what some of us do is we jump into the deep end and we figure it out. Right.
I don't know who said it, man, but somebody said, and I don't know if it was a movie. I think it might have been that movie, Short, The Short, um, where they say, there's something wrong in the economy when you got a stripper with 5 different properties. Um, so don't get me wrong, strippers make a lot of money, like most of them do. Um, but the financial or um this uh, the smarts, I would say, are not necessarily there to be a real estate investor unless they educated themselves with it, right? So back in those times when you were buying all those properties, that's what happened is the market was out of control. Banks were giving money to pretty much anybody. The underwriting was very relaxed, and then we had a 2008 happen, right? So now, did you lose some of those properties when the market collapsed?
Yeah, a couple of them got went the wrong way. A lot of them, the hard money lenders worked out deals, and you wind up kind of selling them. And that's when I started getting into wholesaling and doing kind of turnkey stuff where you could sell it to other investors that were really looking for stuff. Whereas at that point, I was trying to refinance out or do flips to retail buyers. Retail buyers obviously were having a really hard time getting loans, so that's what forced me to. It's probably exactly similar to your story as you were telling me. Then I was like, all right, we got to find a way to make some cash and kind of even some of these things out. So I started getting into wholesaling until the market turned back in around probably 2009, 2010, where you could start actually getting back into flipping and stuff. So, yeah, I started wholesaling portfolios, wholesaling turnkey properties, and, kind of covering some of those losses and salvaging some of those deals. And, things wound up being okay.
I don't think the market turned around until like probably 2011 or 12. Because I was buying all the way from 2008 until today. I never stopped, but we did see a difference in between 2010 and 11. So in 11, things were sort of like getting better. In 2012, they were definitely better. So
Yeah.
now banks were lending again and loaning money, um and things were different. But I remember the thing what back in 2008 was that whoever was buying properties, because Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were intervened, I would say, they you couldn't get those loans. Like normally you could get 10 loans per lane, okay? And that's what the lenders did is they put 10 personal loans, and then you will go and put all those houses on a LLC, and then refinance it onto what they call at the time a blanket loan. But the blanket loan was nothing but private money at a higher interest rate. So
Mhm.
for those that had more than 20 properties, they were forced to get these blanket loans at 9-10% interest, loans, and the cash flow was very thin. Now, DSCR doesn't come in until 2016-17, and they still were at a point or 2 points above what the market was. So if you would have had DSCR back then, no problems. You would just refi out, and of course, and you had to have equity. So if you had no equity, then you're screwed, right? So um that's the key, is always to have equity on these deals, right? I Don't get me wrong, I bought properties with no equity, and it was just a pure cash flow play. They were cash flowing, but they have no equity, or the equity was minimal. Like, let's say, I remember a deal I bought for, they owed 180 grand, and I took it subject to,
Oh,
but I
nice.
could, but I
Nice.
could rent that property for 2,400. So in between their note and my rent, I was making somewhere around $500 a month on it. But then what I ended up doing was owner financing it to the next person, and actually the cash flow was better. So and then we sold it for a lot more than what it was worth, like maybe $20,000-$30,000 above, because we were the bank and we could dictate whether you got approved or not, right? Um, but that would have changed things on your end on those properties that you bought at the time that you could have probably you couldn't like refinance or whatever. And people are afraid to say, "Oh, I got a property foreclosed on." Okay, based on what conditions? Is it a 2008? Like I know two guys that had over 500 properties in 2008, and they lost them all of them. That today they own thousands of units, apartments. So they understood that at the time that was the vehicle they were playing with or they were working with, and that they scaled it kind of like the wrong way because a lot of those properties had no equity and things like that. That doesn't mean that because they got those portfolios foreclosed on that they were failures. They went ahead and rebuilt themselves, and today they own thousands of units. I mean, thousands apartment complexes. These things are huge. They're putting a lot of money into it, and then they find them off market, distressed. They rehab them, and they do syndications. They raise money for it, and they tell the story very openly. I'm not going to mention any names because I haven't been authorized to disclose their names, but you probably know some of these guys. And I also have another friend who's a very successful apartment syndicator that got one of them foreclosed on 2 years ago because the lender didn't want to extend the loan. That was it. The lender knew that they were going to get some equity on that deal if they foreclosed on it. So they play hard and they didn't work with the guy that had done the syndication. What happened to all that syndicated money? It got lost. Now that doesn't mean he's a failure. Whoever is investing in those deals, they're accredited investors. So they gotta be able to underwrite the deals themselves and see if it's a good deal to move forward. So now you said you started wholesaling portfolios and things like that at, somewhere around that time. Um, what else were you doing? Were you just doing real estate, or were you doing multiple things to stay afloat?
No, it's just I've always really just done real estate. I haven't really gone in any other directions. Some slight diversifications with some crypto and some stocks, but real estate's really just I've been all in on real estate since the day I started.
Good deal. And what are you doing real estate wise today? Like, what does your real estate investing look like?
So it was interesting because we got into some multifamily stuff, and I'm definitely like the guy who tries to do everything at once, and then I spread myself too thin, and I don't like turning down opportunities. And my business partner is a little bit of the opposite. So we were renovating. We had a 66 unit, we had a 34 unit, and then we started getting into this land development deal. And I remember she was like, look, like, because I always tell people now, like, you buy a 66 unit building, you have to think of it like you're buying 66 houses in one day. And then you're renovating all of them at the same time. And the same way people lose 20, 30 grand on a house, you're doing that. Like the stakes are so much higher. So that's the things
Yeah.
like when you were saying your buddy, like everybody we know in our circles at some point, if they've been around long enough and gone big enough, it's the Rocky story. Like you're going to take some beatings along the way, but as long as you keep going, the beautiful part about real estate is a couple of wins, they wash out those losses real quick, man. Like that doesn't happen in any other business like it does in real estate, is in my experience. But so she kind of had a talking with me that she was like, look, don't take on like any more huge projects while we have this development deal going on. And I was like, well, what do I do with these deals? And so actually for a little while was wholesaling commercial stuff. And that was like really lucrative. Some of them you're pulling 6-figure wholesale fees on because they're bigger deals. So I started wholesaling commercial stuff. And then I would basically do some versions of reverse flippings for some investors I know while we got the wholesale deal through. And then in the meantime, we've been doing, some subject to stuff, some hotel stuff that went really well, some basic fix and flips. We got some really good private money. We got some good teams in place. So I'm doing a little bit of everything on the residential side, some land stuff. And now that we sold off that development, our main focus for the last like 6-9 months has been trying to really build a steady pipeline here of off-market deals in the Chicago suburbs.
Okay. Did you know Robert Allen had a huge loss?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I think a few times he's had to rebuild.
Yeah. So Robert is number one. He's a friend of mine, and he's also one of my mentors. He coached me on how to write a book, and which, by the way, he's a number one New York bestsellers out there. So he's got multiple number one books out there. So if you guys are listening to this, go check out Robert Allen, The 1 Million Millionaire, Multiple Streams of Income, No Money Down. I mean, I've got all those books. Um, and and he's actually been in my events. We've sold some masterminds together on how to build multiple streams of income. So I'm glad you mentioned them. Shout out to Bob and everything he does and everything he's done for not only for the industry but for the coaches, right? Like he was the number one guy. Like he was the number one guy. Like he was the one that started this whole thing, and
Yeah, dude, people
uh,
forget. I ask people all the time. I'm like, dude, he was on like what Donahue, pulling people off the unemployment line and like starting them in real estate, getting dropped into cities. Like he was the OG for all this stuff, and people
look,
don't realize that he was the real guy. Yeah.
Ron LeGrand started in real estate because of Robert Allen.
Wow, wow, that's
Yeah.
wild. I didn't
Yeah,
even know
and,
that.
and and most of my friends that are in their 50s or 60s, that one way or another, they all Jerry Green got started in real estate because of Bob. John Jackson got started in real estate because of. I mean, I can name. I don't know how many. I didn't. I knew who Robert Allen was, but I didn't get started in real estate because of him. I got started in real estate because of somebody completely different. But a lot of the friends that I have that are that been around for a while in this business since the early 90s, maybe 80s, they all got started because of Bob. He was the guy that was getting them going. So um and look at that, they're still in real estate years later. So all those strategies, they work, right? Like like they get you moving into the right direction. So shout out to Bob and his team about getting people started in real estate. So now, Nick, what is your favorite strategy, the one that you enjoy the most? Because I can tell you my least favorite is being a landlord. I could care less about that. Now I know that this it's got some pros, right? You get taxed depreciation, appreciation. You get write-offs. You get you build equity with time. Somebody else is paying for the loan. So it's kind of like a necessary thing. You have to be involved if you're in real estate, but not necessarily the one you enjoy the most. Now, on your case, which one is the one you enjoy the most?
You know what? If I think if you ask me every day, I'll probably give you a different answer depending on what's going on in my business. There's
Right.
days that you're like, man, I'll do this forever, and then something pops up, you're like, I got to do something. And I always think back to there's a lot of parallels between jujitsu and fighting and business, and like jujitsu for the like. You develop this game of these moves that you have that you get really good at and you get really comfortable with, and then it starts to get stagnant and people kind of catch on and you have to pivot and you have to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. And then all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, I forgot about all this good stuff that I used to do. And you kind of go back. I feel like that's what happens with my real estate. There's seasons where for months and months, I'm like, man, contractors doing good. Private money's killing it. Market strong. Flips are all on point. Let's keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this. And then you pick up some rentals and you're like, yeah, these aren't really doing much for me. But then 18, 24 months go by and you're like, holy crap, like these appreciated a ton. Like
Yeah.
they didn't make a ton of cash flow, but like those actually work better than this one. And then, we went to go flip one a couple of months ago, and it was going to be a pretty hefty flip on an old house. And we knocked on a couple of doors down from the house we were at. We found another investor that does deals like on the same block. And they basically pay us like 40 grand to walk away from the deal. And I was like, wholetailing, so like it kind of goes back and forth. But I would say like if I can wholetail, I think I like that one the best right now. But for a long-term play, when subject twos go right, those are really hard to beat, man. When you get a great subject to deal with a good seller, I just, you always just have the monkey on your back of the long ball of this seller that at any point for 20 years now, you got to worry about them going crazy and stuff. So it's like, there's pros and cons to everything, but I'd say like a good wholesale deal is hard to beat, man.
Wholesale deal. That's your favorite one. So for those of you out there that don't understand what a wholesale deal is, we're not talking about the Marriott or the Hilton. We're talking about a baby. This baby is the son of a wholesale deal and a flip. You basically purchase the property at a discount, like a wholesale deal. You do the bare minimum, which is clean it up, maybe paint a wall here and there, and then you put it back on the market and make a profit out of it. You got to close on it with either private money or owner finance, one of those different strategies. But basically, when Nick talks about wholesaling, that's exactly what he's talking about. It's not necessarily doing a full fix and flip like HGTV, but he's getting it to a point where he can make a good profit out of it. I enjoy the most the wholesale. That's what I enjoy the most. But I've done everything. I've done wholesaling. I've done flipping. I used to enjoy flipping a lot. Until I did properties that I was told they weren't like, you could not flip that. That should be a tear down. And I'm like, nah, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And then, but I've did a lot of those, and now I'm like, I don't need to prove anything to anybody anymore. Not that I ever had to, but I use that as an excuse to prove them wrong. Um, the thing was, I've done some crazy flips, and of course, they took a long time. So when you think about the opportunity costs, deals that you didn't work on because you were flipping those heavy rehabs, you're like, was it worth it? And the answer might be really not. It wasn't really that worth it. Now I always had an abundance of deals on my hands. So that's the only reason why I say maybe it wasn't worth it. But for somebody that doesn't have an abundance of deals on their hands, maybe that's the route to go, right? Like that's the way to go, is to close on it, fix it up, and then put it back on the market. So um roughly how many deals do you think you've done in your career, Nick?
Hundreds. I,
Yeah,
I I wouldn't know the exact, but yeah. And then, at times when they're bigger, there's less, but they're bigger checks. Like the land development deal took a lot of time off, so I wasn't doing as many deals. But I tell people the more crap you're willing to put up with, the more money you'll make. And so, like the land development deal was like very profitable, but it took a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of stress. But then the payout on those ones, or some of these multifamily ones, have been great.
good. How do you see yourself moving forward now? Like what do you want to focus on?
It's a really interesting time because this is the first time that I'm considering potentially like structuring my business a little bit different for the next 6 to 12 months. There's a few other opportunities that we've been offered that I think could be really lucrative. And one of the things that's been really ringing in my head, especially shout out to a guy named Sahil Bloom. He wrote an incredible book called The Five Types of Wealth. I'll send you a copy, man. It's an incredible book, but a lot of it was a basis of like just time and who you spend your time with and how you spend your time. And he gives you some really like slap in the face examples of it with diagrams and pictures. And you start to realize, like, he interviews like 800 people at the end of their lives that made a ton of money. And it was like, what's your advice after all this like success on paper? And they were like, it's not about necessarily making the most amount of money. It's really about doing things with people you enjoy doing things with, and who you're with. And I have an opportunity right now to do some really cool things with some really great people, which would mean I don't have as much time to run the transactional day to day of the real estate business. So we are thinking about making some relationships with some wholesalers that we know, good wholesalers that we know, because there's a lot of bad ones out there. But
Oh yeah.
thankfully, as somebody who's done real estate a long time, I'm very confident running my own numbers on deals. So we're thinking about just kind of for the next 6 to 12 months, making some good relationships and just buying deals directly from wholesalers that we can get at a discount and probably just keep as rentals, or maybe do some light turf fix and flips, not some big ones. But that's looking like it might be the strategy. But 100% land and residential is really my main focus, at least for the next 6 to 12 months. I put the brakes on the commercial stuff and the multifamily stuff just till I see where the market kind of goes. I feel like there's going to be an opportunity to pick up some good deals in the near future, but I feel like right now to me, I don't have enough time to dig deep, and there's too many moving pieces that I feel like it's a little risky for my taste at this exact moment. So residential land, residential, fix and flips and rentals is really where we're focusing.
You can never go wrong with land, man. They don't build any more of that. They only do it in Dubai, where they throw land on, like, dirt on the ocean, and they create a new island. But other than that, they're not making any more land. You know what I mean? Like, the land that's there is there, and it's just gonna appreciate in value. It's like the Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
only so many Bitcoin you can get. once that Bitcoin is sold, that's it. What's on the market is what's gonna appreciate in value. So land is that way. You can buy a piece of land today for whatever, and in 10 to 20 years it's gonna be worth just a lot more because of the appreciation and the inflation, right? So um you can never go wrong with land.
Yeah,
Now,
tax liens too, man. We've been consistently buying tax liens over the last few years. That's been, steady, very steady and safe.
who do you learn how to get tax liens from?
So I had a coach named we call him Coach Phil. He was a guy who taught me a lot of those stuff, and then from there, you learn the basics of it. And I basically just dug into like because every state's different, every
Yeah.
county's different, cities are different. So I've educated myself a lot over the last few years on just the way it works all over, and you start to find some interesting opportunities and some ways that they just some of these counties, I'm like, man, do you guys just hate money? Like, why do you make this so hard and so difficult? But it's been, I think it's one of the hardest strategies to understand initially because it's such a Wild West type of strategy. But when you understand the basis of it and how to figure it out everywhere, it becomes really interesting because you got like what 3,300 counties in this country, and I refer to the counties as stores, which means you got 3,300 different potential stores that might be selling liens or deeds or both. That you can find some stores that have some great inventory there that you can buy and make some good money on.
Yeah, my friend Marcos Jacober. I don't know if you know Marcos.
The deed hunter.
The deer hunter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Great guy. What a good shtick he's got. I like his personality.
Yeah. So I was the one that got him into Family Mastermind.
Oh,
And
okay.
I've been knowing Marcos for quite a while now. Marcos and I started together in this whole world of seminars and things like that. We both bought a seminar back in 2014 called the Quantum Leap Program from the MMI, it was the Millionaire Mind Intensive from D. Harv Eker, and
Okay.
we both signed up. And next thing you know, he's doing seminars about. Now he had already been doing tax deeds and tax liens. I was just doing flipping, so uh, I just didn't know how to make money off of it full time. Like he already was a full time entrepreneur. I wasn't,
Mhm.
but with time, I figured it out. So we go way back, and we've been friends ever since. So he comes to my events, I go to his events sometimes, and we collaborate a lot. But Marcos is amazing, man. He has a huge community where that's all they talk about is tax leads and tax deeds and tax liens and how to buy properties in auction, you name it. So, um, anyhow, how can people get a hold of you, Nick?
So it's I'm the easiest guy to find. I got a website. It is nicknicknick.com/links. So if you go to nicknicknick.com/links, links, you'll see all the ways for the podcast, for my Instagram, for my TikTok. So I'm very active on all social media, and my podcast is available everywhere. We've had great guests like yourself, sir, and I've been very lucky for the people that have agreed to come on over the years. It's always surprising that these guys pick up my phone, and I feel very lucky every day for it. So they can connect with me through that channel anywhere.
Amazing. Nicknicknick.com/lead links. That's how you get in contact with Nick. You can look at his podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. He's got everything in there. Audibles. Make sure you reach out to Nick. He's got a free ebook as well. Sign up for it. Get on the email list. Find him on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And I'm pretty sure Nick is gonna take care of you guys. Nick, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I appreciate you. Guys, don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe. Go to Nick's channel. He's actually on YouTube as well. And don't forget, Attend Growth, Tampa, Florida, June 27th, 28th. I'm looking forward to see you there. You'll have a great day. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Take it easy, brother.